This podcast shines light on strong and talented women who excel and persevere in life while bathing in abundant self-love. So if you're ready to keep it real, level up in all your inner work, creative business, and community impact, then you've come to the right place because we provide you with content that helps your soul glow and your mind grow. Thank you for pressing play. Let's dive in.
So, welcome to another episode of the Stuck on Self-Love podcast. It's been a minute since I've recorded, and I wanted to record on camera because it's been a while. So today we're going to talk about the art of self-love, which sounds like a very simple and very basic topic. But what I've come to learn is that it's really not. And I think that when at random just asked, do you believe in self-love? Or do you know what self-love is? Or do you have self-love? I think that the autopilot answer to that question would be yes, of course I do. Yes, 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 yes. But in actuality, I really don't think most people do, because most human beings kind of have a fear of going within and mainly stick to what is external. And, it is always different strokes for different folks and no judgment there. But for me, I like the path of evolution. I like the path of growth. I like the path of evolving. I like the path of each one, teach one, helping others. And that's why I'm here doing this podcast. So, yeah, today we're going to talk about self-love and the art of self-love and how and why, in the world it is an art. I have a little bit of notes here. Sometimes I take them. I have few little notes that I jotted down so I don't forget things. So I think that when we're talking about self-love, I feel like it's really important to understand energy. And with the understanding of energy, we can really understand a lot of the internal aspects of just being a human being. I think some people are born with a natural ability to understand that the love within. And I think that sometimes that is built out of much adversity, or even out of kind of chaotic homes maybe, or chaotic family dynamics, which I've come to really like in talking to more and more people. And I think that the more love and positivity and kindness and givingness that you exude and bring forth to the world, that creates a lot of magnetism. But there often comes highs and lows, with that magnetism, because often it's you can be exuding such a bright light because you are so giving or so caring, or you believe in love and showering people with love or affirmations or what that is. But I think that a lot of times we don't realize as empaths that in doing that, the light attracts beautiful things, but it also can attract, dark things too, because it is a light. It draws things to it. And I think that when you are in a place and space of self-love, which is really just this inner space of self-confidence and self-acceptance and knowing who you are within your own heart, which I think is really very, very, very rare, that like no one tells you that like the light also can attract darkness. And nobody really ever explains like, well, how to navigate through that. So that's kind of what this podcast is about also, because I feel like there is an art to that. And I think that self-love is a never-ending journey, just like, the inner work never stops. I think that like learning, growing, understanding self-love never stops either. It's a part of the journey. And it's a part of the growth process. So I think that like in this time span where I haven't really been on this podcast, like I've definitely faced a lot of like adversity, and I've definitely faced a lot of like people who didn't want don't want me to be in the position that I am in, don't want me to be a leader in the position that I am in. And I think that's always a struggle. But I think as long as you have self love, and you know who and what you are, and you know what your mission is, and you know what your vision is, that like nothing can really like hinder that process. But it takes a lot to really stand in your own energy and to like really radiate the beauty and the power of your own energy, because that's really what it is. Like that's what self-love is. It's like owning your own power, owning your own energy, and receiving the blessings, the grace, the light that gives. And I think that like you can't really fully understand it until you've kind of tapped into that inner love. And why I think most people don't understand it is because self-love is indeed a journey, like any other aspect or elements of spirituality. It's a process. It's a part of the evolutionary process. And the evolutionary process is not just some like instant gratification type thing. Like you don't just master self-love in like a week, like, oh, I hit these affirmations, like boom, 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 now I know self-love. Or I read this book and now I love myself. No, it comes from many, like more than books and more than even like affirmations, although they are very important. More than like meditating and sitting still and sitting in your own presence and solitude and honoring that. um, I think that it's just such an inner journey on a level where there really aren't like words to quite explain or to quite describe. But I'm gonna try, because I think that yeah, I think that self-love is just like it's not very welcomed in society. Like when you exude or say that you like love yourself, or like I am so in love with myself, I think I'm fabulous or whatever. People just think that you're being vain or narcissistic, or who does she think she is? But it's really just like everybody has like self-love is everyone's birthright. It's just that capitalistic society makes us think and makes us want to believe that it is not. And in every way it is. Like self-love is built into, like the fabric and feel of like our DNA and who we are, but we forget that. And I think that society, capitalism, the materialistic world, the external world makes us forget, like, what is actually valid, what is actually important, what we actually need to tap into. And yeah, it's just like I think that people forget the beauty of like what it is to master and own your own energy and who you are and not vibrate or vibe off of someone else's energy and someone else's flow. I think a lot of times in society, people place a value on the external, on what things look like, what people look like, what relationships externally look like. When, you know, the beauty of life truly comes from a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. And I think most people in this day and age are super just fascinated with what the outside looks like. And I mean, why wouldn't they be? Like Instagram propels that. But Instagram is Zionist owned, and so that's part of the propaganda mission. It's part of the game to make you forget who and what you are. And our purpose, especially on this podcast, is to help you remember who and what you are. And to me, the most valid way you can remember is by tapping into your self-love, which is the core of who you are. And it's not that, and that's not an easy task. I think that like society makes self-love seem like it's such an easy feat, like, oh, like, it's just this easy thing, or like, um, no big deal. Like I can be self-loving. I can do this easily. But to me, like my self-love journey has taken years and years and years. And I began mine with extreme intention of wanting to love every part of myself and not deny myself any part of myself, and to love every aspect of my being, of my thinking, of how I look, even on the external aspect of my avatar, or humanness. And like I think that it's such a tough thing. Like people think it's so simple, and self-love is not a simple thing. It's not simple at all. It's not even simple to talk about, as you guys can really see, because I'm like, and I put off this podcast for a while because I'm like, well, how do I just talk about like straight up self-love? Because in this podcast, we talk about all aspects of self-love. I've talked about even my journey of self-love, but I've never like straight up just talked about self-love, like the art of actually mastering self-love. And the art of actually mastering self-love is like you got to break yourself down, and it's not like a pretty like process that you can like wrap a bow around. There's a lot of breakdowns, and there's a lot of like also breakthroughs because of the breakdowns. But yeah, it's a very, very, very tough process. And I don't think that, like, if I didn't have all of like the instances where I've broken down, I don't think that I would, that I couldn't fully rise up. Um, and so, like, I think there are many things that, like, self-love embodies, and I think that society paints a picture of it as it is always just love and light. And it's not. There are very dark aspects of self-love, because self-love includes accountability and being accountable for every aspect of that which you are. And it includes owning that which you are. And a lot of people fear that. And I think that when you have self-love, you learn to just take accountability, because what I've learned, especially like in like a working context, is like the more you can just like, when something goes wrong, you can just be like, damn, like you can just be honest, like, damn, like I fucked up. I'm so sorry about that. Like, or damn, I fucked up. Like, this is what happened. This is what I meant to happen. Like, and you just say it right away to whoever, to whatever. It just creates such a release and such a relief. And that's what I've come to realize lately. And it makes, obviously the mistake is still there, but like there is a respect that comes with you taking accountability for, um, any mistake that you've made. And I think like owning up to mistakes is a definite sign of like spiritual maturity. The more you initially, in the beginning of the process, like strip yourself of ego, it's like you let more light in. And like ego is always necessary. Like we always need ego in our back pocket, like, to pull out when necessary, to pull out when we need to remind people who and what we are, when we need to stand up for ourselves, when we've been done wrong, etc. But we don't always need to carry it around like a crutch. And a lot of people do. And yeah, like we don't always need to be tied and chained to ego, because that it gives, like, it feels almost like a slavery type thing when you're really tied that much to ego. Um, and so I try to, and Eckhart Tolle says in his books, like The Power of Now and New Earth, he always says like you should strip yourself of ego daily. I try to do that. Sometimes life just does it, on its own. But what I try to do also is while meditating, I try to reach a state of like emptiness. And I try to, in a kind of like Zen Buddhist way, practice and visualize emptiness. And yeah, that helps me in a lot of ways, because I think, probably some people are like, well, what do you mean by emptiness? What is that? I think that it's understanding that we don't need to hold all of these random thoughts in our brain. We don't need to hold all of this like pain from others, from life, from capitalism, like on our heads. We always internally have the ability to be free, but most time we forget that. And most times society makes us forget that because it is designed to do so. So when you meditate on something as simple as emptiness, and you can even look up like on YouTube, like meditations on emptiness, and I'm sure you'll find something pretty powerful. Um, but it just helps you ground. And I think that grounding yourself is also a part of self-love. And currently, I'm actually filming this podcast while I am at my vacation home. It's a bit after Thanksgiving. And yeah, I've never recorded here before, but I wanted to because I just feel different here. And it's like, I was going to say, like, I feel elevated here, but it's almost like I actually do, because it's all the way up Highway 1. And so it's literally like elevated on a California platform, and, it is very high up. And I don't know. I think something about like, well, because like my grandfather built this home, and he bought this land. But it's also the indigenous land of the Pomo Indians. So I think that that gives it a lot of healing energy as well. Yeah, like today I went to the beach. I saw a stag deer, and I think that along the self-love journey, I think that like paying attention to signs is very important. Like, oh, I just saw this thing, or I just saw this animal, or I just saw this bird. Like, what does it mean? For me, I've like almost always looked up the meaning or deeper meaning of like when I see an animal or a unique bird, like what does it mean? Like, what is the spiritual symbolism of that? And And I've looked up the symbolism of like a stag deer, and I've even like written a blog post about it. But yeah, like stag deers represent, like fierceness, and they represent like standing up for people you love and your family and yourself. And it's like a very strong energy. It means that you're in your power when you see a stag. And today I saw a stag like chilling, which like made me be like, oh, cool, like I'm in my power and I'm chilling. Like I've never seen it stag like sitting down before unless I saw today, which is pretty dope. um, so yeah, and I think that like and I was alone like while walking and all that. And um and I think that self love, or the journey of self love, requires a lot of solitude. It requires being alone a lot and being in isolation a lot. Like there's a quote like, your elevation will require isolation. And I think that that is very true. Like when you're growing spiritually, it's kind of hard to be around a lot of people. But once you evolve or ascend and elevate in certain ways spiritually, on certain spiritual tiers, it becomes easier again to like mesh back in with society or people with different views or whatever. But like when you're in a very sensitive, like evolutionary self love kind of state, yeah, it can be kind of hard. And isolation is very, very, very important. And it's important to learn how to fall in love with your isolation and fall in love with your solitude, because that's what self love is. And I think that, like, for me, I had to learn how to fall in love with my solitude at a very early age, because I was very young when, like, my parents, like, got divorced, and just I had parents that didn't pretty much acted like emotion doesn't exist, like it's not a thing, right? So I spent a lot of time alone, and like I couldn't really say my emotions, say what I'm feeling, say what I'm thinking to them, say how like sad or mad or whatever I feel. So I had to start journaling really young. I journaled. I've been journaling since I was like 11 or 12. Like that was when I started my first journal. And I just kept going from there because it was my outlet. It was my way to express when nobody else would let me express, and when I had nobody else to really talk to. And so, and then I, kept journaling most of my life. So, it forced me in a way to fall in love with like my own solitude, my own like inner peace, that which I am. Uh, and I'm not really saying that that's even ideal, but I've found in talking to so many people that a lot of people who have kind of like self-love mastery, and I don't know if there can ever be self-love mastery because I think it's always going to be a journey, but in talking to more and more people, I've learned that a lot of people who go through deep trauma, especially within their households, or like have very severe situations, um, yeah, it's like they have the ability to understand self-love in ways that other people probably wouldn't, because they've had to, like, because I had to tap into self-love for my own survival. And I think that a lot of other people are like that too. And I think that when you go on the self-love journey and you feel like, oh, I'm all alone and in solitude, in growing in your journey, um when you start to expand and talk to other people about it, I think that the beauty in that is like you realize that there are so many more people similar to you and who have similar experiences than that which are different. It's just we don't talk to each other, and especially in like a fascist country and society and all of this, it's like through propaganda telling us that we shouldn't keep communicating with each other, like that we shouldn't have communities that uplift one another, that we shouldn't spread love and light, because it's like toxic or positivity or whatever. And I mean, granted, there, it can be. There are aspects of that, but I think that it's important to, with our own words, with how we are, how we engage, how we act. I think it's important to fill each other up, especially with our own in our own community, within our own collective. It's important to fill people up with like hope and joy and faith and light. And it's important to fill people up so that we uplift others, but in doing that, we also uplift ourselves. Um, and I think it's harder to do now because of the way that society is changing. But I think it's probably more important due to that, um, so I think that like in 2020, when the pandemic really happened, okay, sorry. I need a little wine break. This is getting deep. So yeah, grab yourself a glass of water, wine, juice, tea, whatever you like. So yeah, I think that in 2020, the world, the universe, the powers that be, in their own weird, twisted way by accident, kind of lent us an opportunity to go within, to sit with ourselves, to be alone. A lot of people took that chance, that opportunity, and delved into themselves and delved into a spiritual journey, self love, whatever you may have it. So now it's interesting because we're seeing the results of people who have really dedicated themselves to a spiritual path, a healthy path, a path of self-love, etc., whatever it is. And then we can kind of also see people who have not, and people who don't really know, like which way is up or down or left or right. Because during that time they didn't take the time to go within. They were only focused on external things. And I don't want to sound like super elitist or anything like that, because I know that like it's hard. Life is hard. Like shit gets hard. It's you have to sometimes go out in the external world, and you have to get jobs or work or do this or do that, A, B, and C, and take care of this person or that person or whatever it might be. But there is always time and some space and some place where you can take solitude to yourself. Like even if it's just like a little corner, if it's a bit of time at night when everybody else is asleep, or whatever it is, like I think that it is valid and necessary. So yeah, I think that understanding that is part of understanding the art of self-love. And I think that so many people think the answer is out there. Like the answer is in somebody. Like the answer is in what, oh my God, what somebody will text me next. Oh my God. Or what someone will post next. Oh my God. or, the next call. I can't wait till he calls me or this person calls me or whatever it is. And that is not where salvation lies. Like, no one is coming to save you, no matter what your situation is, no matter if you're in a family unit, you're single, you're, whatever the situation is. Like, we all came into this world alone. We're all going to leave alone. And that's not some harsh thing to say, it's just reality. I always say that I am an optimistic realist. And I'm very optimistic, but I'm also a realist. And like, I can talk about death, I can talk about loss, I can talk about that. And I can also be optimistic about love and truth and happiness and joy at the same time because I've experienced all of those things. And I think that it's important to honor all of those things. And I think that fully embracing self love is honoring all of those things. Mhm, mhm. And I think that the only true sanity you will find is within your own heart. Because if you look to find sanity outside and in within the external world, well, the world is insane. We live in a genocidal world at this point. You can't find sanity out there. Sanity's here, where your heart is, inside you, inside the love you have for yourself. Nowhere else. And I think that's what people forget. And that is what this podcast is here to remind people of. So, let me give you an example, I guess, of a human who, and there are so many humans who like exude light and love. And some people, I think, just innately have self love because of either because of like the situations, family situations that they were born into, or just because they are just indigo children born here with it. Um, but I think a good example, and what I'm going to use example is like comedians, and like for example, like there is Robin Williams who did such beautiful films like What Dreams May Come, like Mrs. Doubtfire, and brought so much love and joy into all of our hearts. And then we find out that he was horribly depressed and decided to kill himself. Like, and I think that we often just disregard the struggles of artists. Like, oh, they're just artists. Oh, like they're just popular, have fame, they go through stuff, they're messy, blah blah blah. Oh, he died, blah blah blah. Like, but no, I think people don't really understand like what it takes and what really happens to you when you are like like a when you are standing in kind of like this vibrational place of giving others joy because you have it. Sometimes you give too much and then you can like lose it. And I think that's what happened with him. I think another great example is Richard Pryor, who brought so much joy and so much love and so much light to everyone he touched, and like just laughter. And he was so talented, and people just pass him up a lot of the time, like, oh, he was just a drug addict and died, and he couldn't handle this or that or whatever. And it's just like, do you know what human beings like that have to deal with? And it's like artists have to deal with so many other things and influences and energetic influences from other people. Like, people have their eyes on artists like no other people. People stalk artists. People want to tap into what makes that artist an artist, Like, people want to find and figure that out the quick and easy way when artistry is spiritual, There is no quick and dirty way to like get to a spiritual result. And like who knows what pressures, what energies, Robin Williams was facing. Who knows what pressures, what energies Richard Pryor was facing. And I always think about, sorry, my pause was because I was thinking about Basquiat also, like he gifted the world with so much beauty and so much light and so much joy and his partying and his street art and blah blah blah. But like he was also dismissed for just being a drug addict too. And a lot of the times when because all artists are also spiritualists, a lot of times when you are a deeply spiritual being, well, first of all, you have gifts. You have certain, like, there are multiple gifts, like that so many spiritual people have. And I think that people try to exploit those gifts, and people try to exploit who you are and what you give and how much you give to, and like they just want to take, and they want to take your energy. And I can only imagine, like, after a while, what a toll that taking of energy would take on like a human being who's at a very high pedestal in society, and who a lot of people know, um, because I think that I question this often, like, like how much, like, good and love and light can I give to society, or can I give to collective consciousness, and you know and still be good, and still be me, and still be grounded, and still be stable in all of the self-love that I have, like, acquired and sustained within my own soul. And I think that, like, it's hard to navigate, because when you're spreading love and spreading light and spreading positivity, like, it's not like, and when you're just spreading it to the masses on public platforms, it's like you are spreading it for the betterment of humanity and people who are searching and seeking to be on a spiritual path. But there are also very dark people and dark entities, like, that exist in the world, on that path. And people who, there are people who give you energy and people who take energy. I heard the quote recently that, like, fascists are not raised, they are born. And I think that it's true, because I think that while some people are kind of like born with the knowledge, knowing, or maybe just like desire to understand self love, I think that sometimes other people are born with kind of like the opposite, or they desire to take, and not that they don't have love within, not that they cannot learn or understand self love, but it's like in some people's nature to just take more than they give. And that's kind of what capitalism is. It's kind of like what fascism is. So it's something that's very precarious and that we should, like, pay attention to. But in this late stage of capitalism, like, we are where we are. And things are as they are. Like I said, I am an optimistic realist. So, with that being said, and where we are in society, where genocide is happening in Palestine, in the Congo, in Sudan, and so many other places, it's important that we hold on to our humanity, that we hold on to our self-love, that we hold on to that which is real. Like, what's real is love. What's real is here. What's real is now. What's real is truth. What's real is honesty, And, like, a lot of us have, at this point in late stage capitalism, forgot that, because also that's its goal. And, like, most people don't think that like these emotional things emotional things are the goal of late stage capitalism. Oh, but they definitely are. Like that is it's the goal. Emotion is what propaganda like rises up in people. And that's why it's so powerful because like if you're an unconscious person, if you're unaware and you're just feeding into everything that is externally around you, then all of a sudden, yeah, you're going to, of course, regurgitate the propaganda that you see around you. And you're going to, of course, be like, and just repeat whatever you see or are being told versus exerting free thought. And I think that self love and free thought are also tied together. And that's really not talked about either, because I think that to have self love, to go on a journey of self love, you have to also kind of embrace the idea of free thought, because that's what it is at this point in society, I guess. Um, you know, so yeah. What else was I gonna say? I think that there's a lot of talk about split worlds and about a lot of people living in mental hell versus a lot of people living in mental heaven right now within the spiritual community. And I think that that is very real too. A lot of people say like 3D versus 5D or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. For me, it's just like I'm sure any Christian would say that, obviously there's a heaven and there's a hell but I think that heaven is here and now. And I think that heaven is a frequency. And I think that the more you tap in and tune in and turn on your elevated frequency, the more that you can feel and be in heaven. And the further you also get from that proverbial hell that so many people are in. And so many people are just in that hellish state because they can't detach from external society because they've tied themselves to it. And that's not where bliss is. Like, bliss is in here, not out there. And it's not, and finding bliss in here is not some easy quick fix. It's a long journey. And it's a long journey that a lot of people weren't willing to go on. It's a long journey that most people don't want to go on. It's a long journey that most people won't go on in this lifetime. Come back and do it another lifetime maybe. But I think that understanding that a heavenly existence can happen now is also a part of loving yourself and loving your experience and loving everything that is around you. And it's funny because I think that people who do not have self-love think that it's like some fanciful or like some whimsical, unattainable dream. To be able to sit with yourself and to be able to breathe with yourself and be able to love every single part of yourself, it creates a state of grace in whatever environment you are in, wherever you are. And I recently had a conversation with some friends, and I was talking about just we were talking about self-love, but then we were talking about how when people are in the state of self-love and like love and light and always giving and always giving and always giving and and a lot of us were like, oh, it just gets so exhausting and draining because like we give and without reciprocation, or we give and it's never acknowledged or thanked or appreciated, or whatever it may be. And we were all going on about this. And then a friend said, well, I want to play devil's advocate. And I think that when you give, you receive it back, but maybe in other ways, like maybe not through that person. And that was really what I needed to hear. And I'm really thankful that he said that. But it's like for me, yeah, like sometimes I give to people so much that I get frustrated, like what am I doing this for? Like why? Like they don't care or whatever. But then I don't know. I think because I just give for no reason, and because I just share love and shower people with love or affirmations or whatever it is for really no reason. Yeah, life just grants me a lot of great things. It takes a lot of adversity and just strength and just like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what really compels me to give, knowing that I might or that I won't receive from a person, you know? But I think it's just seeing people's potential and seeing what they can be and understanding the potential that we all have as humans to evolve and grow. I think it's just me being a humanitarian and seeing that every human has grace and beauty in them, and that they deserve the chance of joy all the time. They deserve to feel like the same lightness that I feel in my heart every day, and they deserve to wake up happy or and at peace and go to sleep at peace and have a good night's sleep or whatever it is. And I think that if I can do that and shift that with like one person, then I can shift it with others. But sometimes it is very harsh to not necessarily receive it back. Um, but then, like he said, I don't know. Like I receive it back in every other way because God is God and the universe is the universe, and self love gives back also. Um, and I think that like part of loving yourself, when you love yourself and when you love yourself so much that like nothing really can shake it, then it's really no big deal like giving some to others because your cup is already full. And it's like if my cup is already full, why can't I share some with others? But I know like yeah, you do have to be discerning because energy vampires do exist. I've had my fair share of them in the past 2 years. Boy, have I ever. I've learned to always own and master my own power and my own energy and know that like even if like an quote unquote evil eye, which is like jealousy, which is like stalkers, blah blah blah, malice on you, that you still hold power over that situation. You just always have to remember your power and always call that power back to you. And when you know yourself is stronger, you are. And when you believe in yourself, like you do, and like you are the power. That is a stuck illustration. Like you are the power, not some external force, nobody else over you, no power, no government, whatever. You are the power. And I think in remembering that, yeah, it helps me to keep elevating, to keep growing, to stay healthy, to stay on my path and on my journey. But like, yeah, sometimes it does just like I feel like the pressures of society, the pressures of like people who do have that evil eye energy on you, can get really daunting. Me and Tazine and Madeline have all been talking about very similar experiences, and we've all been talking about how we've had like weird stalkery experiences or experiences where friends don't understand when we like need space or when we need to take alone time or things like that. And because of that, and because of other conversations that I've had, I know that it's at an all-time high. And I also know this like influx in stalking is also like a part of like the fascist kind of like regime and movement of things, because like that's what putting like new features on Facebook or inundating you with the same kind of like information it does it's just like inevitable. If you're only feeding into that, that's what you become. Like, attention goes where energy flows. So we've all been dealing with it. And that is also why we haven't been on the podcast as much, but we will be returning. We have a lot of good things cooked up for you guys. But yeah, it's just like the art of self-love is not some easy art. And art in and of itself is not easy. And I know most people think it's just like a paradise ride. And I'm here to tell you and assure you that it's not. Artists are essential workers, just like a lawyer works on the materialistic or external aspects of life, or the doctor works on your body and healing your body in any way that you need. Artists heal the soul. And we are essential workers and necessary for society to function. So, yeah, I think we deserve a lot more respect than we've been getting. Um, with an era of fascism, I'm not really sure that we will, but I'm happy when people, like do honor the real, true hard work that it does take to be an artist. And I think that also, kind of wrapping up, like, you realize in the self-love journey is like that presence is a huge part of self-love. I think I said grounding earlier, but grounding is very much connected to presence. And I think that when you're in a state, when you're really like frustrated or mad or sad about something, you don't know what to do. What I think is a great practice is, for one, telling yourself that you love yourself, because I do that often, like every day. And you don't, everyone underestimates the power that, like, saying, for example, to myself, like, I love you, Brett, like that simple statement has. And the more you do it and the more you actually believe it, the more powerful it becomes. And also, what I say is, where, like, when I'm in a state or if I'm frustrated or whatever, I'll be like, where are you, Brett? I'll be like, here. What time is it? Now. And that centers me. And I think that presence is a very vital and important part of the self-love journey, because when you're present, it invites in peace. And when you're at peace, you're less resistant to self-love. There are countless ways that the universe can like bless you and respond to the good that you're putting out. So yeah, that's what I want to remind you guys of. Like, while you're loving yourselves and learning to love yourselves more, like, yeah, don't be afraid to give. Giving is important. Our society right now acts like it's not important, and like that's what I feel like the shortage of food and the shortage of goods and this and that is all about. They want us to stress about scarcity, and they want us to stress about lack, and not about abundance or prosperity, which we all innately have because that is our birthright. And they want us to be crushed down by that and not believe that without without all of these material things, we gonna be all right. Like, we're gonna be okay. Like, we're all right. So, life is beautiful. And I think that we often forget that because we put too many complexities on the beauty and the simplicity that is life. So I invite you to try to love yourself more and to try to engage in positive self-talk with yourself internally, and thus engage in more positive self-talk with others, and thus creating stronger communities, stronger connections. I invite you to be more vulnerable and open with yourself, which will thus make you more vulnerable and open with others. Because it always starts with yourself, If you're not vulnerable or honest with yourself, how can you be honest with others? If you're lying to yourself about what's in your own heart, how can you really be truthful and honest to others? And I think that part of self-love is that understanding. It's part of self-love is like calling yourself out on your own bullshit and being like, and sometimes I would be like this. I'd be like, hey, Brett, you need to get your shit together. But I always tell myself I love myself, like, even in the midst of that, because sometimes love is tough love, even in the context of self-love. So I invite you, even if you're a little bit nervous or precarious about the journey of it, because it's everlasting and non-stopping and hard work, I invite you to hop on the journey of self-love, and I invite you to give more to others, regardless of the reciprocation, regardless of what you get back from them, because the act of giving is enough. And the act of giving feeds you and fuels your soul. Almost like, there's a little tangent, but almost like how the act of forgiving somebody, like, it's not for them, it's for you. And I think we often forget that. And it's just very important right now to remember as much as we can and spread as much of that memory as we can so others can remember too, because we are at a very vital time in human history and global history and the history of America, like, and beyond. And I don't really understand why people are acting like we're not. Like, fascism isn't happening, like genocides aren't happening, like, like I saw this post today, like, we we will pay for years to come for ignoring anything like genocide, or something like that. But that's real. Like, for me, it's been very hard to like go to certain things or engage in certain social things right now as genocide is happening. But then I'm realizing that it's just happening. It's just going to be an ongoing thing, and we have to deal and move at the same time, deal with the hardship and it's like hold the dark and the light at the same time. And I think Geminis are great at that, because I'm a Gemini. But like, it's like the ability to merge dark and light and to understand that there's a deep darkness in the world, but you can also hold light in your heart at the same time, and not be so sad when darkness happens, because it's always going to happen, but light can always happen too. So let's end with some affirmations as usual. You are so powerful. You are so brave. You are brilliant. You are a genius. You help others beyond what they will say, recognize, or admit. You are kind, you are loving, you are a beam of light, and you are an ultralight beam. And I hope that you all remember to, say your affirmations often. Until next time, goodbye. I love you guys all.